Hey, what is going on, everybody? Scary Spike's back with you again here, and today on Learn2Magic we're going to be talking about the white color of Magic. Of course, we're going to be doing videos for blue, black, red, and green in the future, but right now I want to talk about white. White is probably one of my favorite colors. It is probably one of the best colors to use for token-oriented decks, which is the kind of deck we're going to be looking at today. Of course, there are other colors that give you a viable option to play with tokens as well. Specifically red, it does a very good job with tokens, but we're going to be looking at white today, and I want to introduce you to not only the different colors of Magic, but I also want to introduce you to a basic state of deck building, which is a lot of fun. It can be very daunting at first to start building decks in Magic. I remember when I first started playing Magic, deck building was one of the things I wanted to avoid at all costs because it was too confusing, it was too complicated, and often when I built decks in Magic, they were never very good decks, and I usually got summarily slaughtered as a result of my poor deck building skills. But fortunately, those skills are ones that do get better over time as you get into deck building, and even as a new player in Magic, I would strongly recommend that you actually get into deck building as early as possible, because it's going to make you a better player, and it's going to make you pretty much enjoy the game a lot more down the road. So it is a little complicated at first. Don't let that scare you. It's something that's a lot of fun, and I want to get into that with you today. So this isn't exactly the most efficient or the best deck in the world, but it's a basic deck that has a very good theme. And this is one of the other things I wanted to talk about before we actually get into the build, is that when you build a deck in Magic, you should not consider more than one theme. So a theme could be something like graveyard recursion with black, where you're bringing stuff back from the graveyard, or tokens with white, for example, or like an aggro deck with a lot of hasty creatures and a lot of burn with red, and so on. So you want to stick with one focus, because, for example, when we're playing white, we have a few different focuses here. We have some lifelink focuses here, where we can actually build a deck around lifelink and gain a bunch of life. We have different auras and equipments that we can use, so we can build either an auras deck or an equipment deck. We can also go with tokens. So you don't want to pick more than one theme. It's okay to have one sub-theme where you splash a few different cards. If you want to give yourself an alternate win condition, that's okay, but just don't put too many themes in one deck. And the reason is because it's going to reduce the amount of consistency that you'll have while you play the deck, and often you're going to be losing games because of that. So if you want to build a deck just to experiment, do whatever you like. But if you want to build a deck where you actually want to be able to compete with your friends, or even start playing at tournaments, it's really important to learn that you need to focus on one particular theme, and that will keep you more efficient and more consistent, which is the key to winning games. So with that being said, without further ado, let's get into this build. I want to sort of show you the cards that I'm using. So first of all, we're going to start out with 24 lands. 24 lands typically for an average deck is pretty average. It's not too low, it's not too high. It's a good amount of lands to start out with. Generally, you want to have about 24 to 26 creatures as well, especially if it's an aggro-based deck. Aggro meaning you're being very aggressive, you want to end the game quickly. So as you see here, we've got 26 creatures. We've got 10 spells, 24 lands, for a total of 60 cards. Now, I may have mentioned this before, but it's very important to keep your cards to not more than 60. 60 is the minimum for most constructed formats in Magic, but you don't want to keep you don't want to have your cards exceed 60, and the reason is because, again, you want to keep yourself more consistent. There's cards in here such as Brimaz, the King of Oreskos, that we'd like to play. We only have one of those in this deck, so we want to be able to play him and have a good chance of drawing him, so we can play him and he can help us win the game. But if we have 70, 80, or even 100 cards in the deck, it's going to reduce our chances of drawing him, and therefore reduce our chances of winning the game. So we want to keep our cards to 60 if we can in the deck, and let's get started with the build here. So first we have Selfless Cathar. For 1 mana, he's a 1/1, and we can sacrifice him after paying 1 colorless and 1 white to give our other creatures +1/+1 until end of turn. So he's not very good early game. He can do a couple of points of damage himself, but he's really good later on when you've got about 10 or 12 guys, and the points that you need to win, that you need to pretty much deduct from your opponent's life total, there's going to be a difference of like 4 to 6 points. He can make that difference by pumping your guys +1/+1, so he's really good. Loyal Pegasus, not a great card by himself, but considering we're running a token deck, he's really, really good. He's a 2/1 for 1, and he's got flying. So unfortunately, he can't attack or block alone, but because we're going to be flooding the board with tokens consistently, I think we're always going to have tokens or other creatures out there that will be able to attack with Loyal Pegasus, making him a pretty good card in this deck. So moving on, Wall of Omens for 2 mana is a 0/4 defender. Defender means he cannot attack, but he can still be a great blocker, especially in the early game. And one of the great things that this thing does is it draws us a card when it comes into play, which is really, really good. So this is something I like. We like to call a cantrip in the Magic community. And basically, that means that it does something when it comes into the battlefield, but more importantly, that thing is that it replaces itself. So this is definitely one card that does that. Squadron Hawk is a 1/1 flyer for 2 mana, and when he comes into play, you can search your library for Squadron Hawks, and you can take any number of them and put them in your hand. So what we were talking about before in terms of thinning out your deck and basically becoming more streamlined and more efficient, more consistent, Squadron Hawk helps you to do that. Besides the fact that he's an evasive flyer, not a lot of people run creatures with reach or flying, so it's good to have even a 1/1 that they can't block and just get that consistent damage through every turn. But the nice thing is that this guy also helps to thin out our deck, and that's really, really good, because the less cards we have in our deck, the greater chances we have of drawing cards like Brimaz, so that's really good. Since we're running tokens, Raise the Alarm is a no-brainer. It's 2 mana at instant speed, and you can put 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield. The good thing about this is not so much that it makes tokens. It's not very powerful in the sense that, you know, you pay 2 and you get 2 1/1s. That's fairly average, but what's really good about this is you can do it at an instant speed, so that you can do it on the end of your opponent's turn, for instance, or you can do it when your opponent is attacking. So let's say your opponent is playing a goblin deck, and he's got 2 1/1 goblins that he's been hitting you in the face for the first turn, and then subsequently the second turn. What you can do is, prior to the combat damage resolving during the second turn, you can just play this and trade with each one of his goblins. And since you only have, you know, they're only tokens, it's not that big of a deal for you. But since, you know, if he's running a goblin theme, it's probably going to hurt him because he benefits from having more goblins in play. So this is a card that's really, really good against that kind of matchup, but it's also really good because you can play it at the end of his turn, or whenever it's situational, and whenever it's good for you. So that's a really good card there. Speaking of good cards, Brimaz, King of Oreskos, 3 mana for a 3/4 with Vigilance. Vigilance meaning that he doesn't tap when he attacks. Just that by itself is incredible, but as you can see here, he's a mythic rare with the orange set logo here. So he's got a few other abilities here, one of which is when he attacks, he puts a 1/1 white cat creature token with Vigilance also on the battlefield attacking. And then when he blocks, he puts a 1/1 white cat soldier creature token. What soldier? White cat. It is white cat soldier creature token. My goodness, that's a mouthful. With Vigilance onto the battlefield, blocking that creature. So really, really good. He can eventually just make you crazy armies of tokens if those tokens are not blocked or killed by your opponent. So since we're focusing on a bunch of creatures that come in either regular creatures or tokens with 2 power or less into the battlefield, with the exception of Brimaz, of course, the Mentor of the Meek is really, really good. He's a 3-drop for 2/2, which is not fantastic, but the fact that you can pay 1 each time you play a creature, or a creature comes in with 2 power or less under your control, you're able to draw a card as a result of paying that 1 colorless. So that's really, really good. Good card draw engine, and card advantage is a great way to win Magic games, so it's always good to have a card like this in here. Crusader of Ordric for 3 mana. It's a star, and the stars are equal to the number of creatures you control. Again, we're playing a lot of tokens. We're planning on flooding the board with tokens, so if we have like 6 or 7 1/1s, the 1/1s are not exactly very scary, but her being out there as well, she counts herself as a creature, so if we have 7 1/1s, she would be an 8/8 for 3 mana. That's excellent. Speaking of excellent cards, Attendant Knight for 3 mana is a 2/2 first striker, which is pretty good, but when she comes in, she also brings in a 1/1 white soldier creature token onto the battlefield as well. Having all these 1/1s, it's not that fantastic unless you can pump them up. And anthems come in a variety of different ways. Anthems are basically pump spells, things that either temporarily or more so permanently pump up your creatures. And usually they come in something like an enchantment form, like a permanent that stays in play. Sometimes they come on a creature like we have here with Paragon of the New Dawns. For 4 mana, we have a 2/2. It gives all of the white creatures that you control +1/+1, and you're able to tap 1 white and tap her as well. Of course, on the first turn you wouldn't be able to do that because Summoning Sickness would prevent you from tapping it or attacking with it. But any other turn after that, you're able to tap 1 and tap 1 white and tap her to give a creature you control Vigilance. That can be pretty pertinent in a game where you don't want to be not aggressive. You want to be as aggressive as possible, so, and you don't want to leave creatures behind, not attacking, in order to use them as blockers. What this allows you to do is give something vigilance so that you can still attack, and then you can still block on your opponent's turn, which is really good. Then here we've got Phantom General, 4 mana for a 2/3, which is not too bad, but again, it's another Anthem on a stick. It gives our creatures +1/+1, which is really nice. Then moving on, we've got the Inspired Charge for 4 mana. This seems like a lot. +2/+1 is still not that great for 4 mana, but what's important is it's an instant speed, so we can use this as a combat trick. And if we have, let's say, 4, 5, even 8 tokens attacking, those 1/1s are going to turn into 3/2s. Which is really, really good, and that's probably something that our opponent's not going to see coming, because we're going to be able to play that at instant speed. So let's say we attack with 5 1/1s, and he's blocking a bunch of them with something like 2/2s or even 3/2s. We can trade or even just outright kill them if we play this before the battle damage resolves. So a really, really good card to have for having lots of tokens out on the field. Baneslayer Angel is a little bit different here. She doesn't really fit into the deck in terms of the token theme, but it is good to have at least one other win condition in your deck, and this is it. This is obviously a very good card to match up against black, because it's protection from demons and dragons, and black and red typically have, well, red never really has any demons, but red does have a lot of dragons and black does have a lot of demons. So this is a good card against both of those colors. It's a 5/5 flyer, it has first strike and lifelink as well, so really, really good. It's just a good card to basically put into play once our token strategy fails, if it ever does. Then we've got Captain of the Watch, relatively new card to Magic 2015. It was added not too long ago. 6 mana is a little bit of a steep cost, but it is a 3/3 with Vigilance. It does have an Anthem on a stick again. Our creatures get +1/+1 and also have Vigilance. And when he comes into play, or she rather, she makes 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens as well. So she pumps them up, she makes the tokens, she's got Vigilance. Not too bad. The mana cost is really not that scary. It is more important to try to get up there, but once you get up there and cast this card, it's a pretty formidable threat for your opponent. And finally, we've got the Triplicate Spirits, which is again 6 mana, but you're able to Convoke. And Convoke, what that means is you can tap any number of creatures that you control, and each one of those creatures costs pretty much counts as a mana symbol on this card. So if you only have 2 mana available, but you have 4 creatures in play, you're able to tap your 2 mana and your 4 creatures, and each of those 4 creatures will count as a mana symbol, and you're able to use that to cast this card. And this card, of course, allowing us to put 3 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield. Flying, again, very important, because flying cannot be blocked unless it's blocked by a creature that has flying or by a creature that has reach. Okay, so this is the deck, and without further ado, let's get into some gameplay and see how this deck performs. Alrighty, so here we've got our first opening hand, and this doesn't look too bad. It's a little bit on the expensive side, but we do have enough to play Mentor of the Meek, and then we can play our Raise the Alarm, so that's not too bad, and then we can pump our tokens with the Paragon. So let's go ahead and keep this, and I'm just going to play a land for turn and pass our turn. It would have been nice to have something like a 1-drop, either the Loyal Pegasus or the Selfless Cathar, just to be able to drop down right away. But considering that we're going to be playing against, let's see, white, blue, and black at least, and this is a tapped land, so our opponent's not going to be able to do anything right now. And looks like a little bit of a slower start. There's the Pegasus, so that's not too bad. So we can play a land, and we can play the Pegasus. And then we pass the turn. So I think what we're going to do next turn is we're going to play the Mentor of the Meek, unless we get anything else that we can play. And then the following turn after that, we're going to be able to put in the Raise the Alarm and also be able to play, to pay for drawing a card with Mentors. So let's go ahead and do that. Well, what's going on here? I can't seem to cast this card. That's really weird. We're not going to attack. Guess we can't. There we go. We'll play that, and then we'll play a Mentor of the Meek. And we just drew into Squadron Hawk as well, which is really, really nice. He's going to be able to get us a lot of Mentor triggers. So it looks like, yeah, we're playing against a control deck here with Think Twice, drawing him a card at instant speed at the end of our turn. And looks like he's got 3 mana going for him here, and what that tells me is that he may or may not have a counterspell for what we're going to do. So before I want to cast this, I want to actually cast Squadron Hawk. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into combat first. And we'll see what he does. Okay. So he's going to do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to see what he's going to block. I think he's going to try to double block our guy here. So what we're going to do is we're going to play this. Play our own. And we're going to pay the 1 extra mana on this guy because he's going to die to draw a card. So that's unfortunate. I wasn't expecting him to have tokens. But now we know. So now we can play more cautiously in the future. But sadly he's going to be double blocking our mentor and our mentor is going to be dying. Fortunately 2 damage will still go through. So he's going to be at 18 life. And now his tokens are dead. And now we still have tokens that we can attack with Loyal Pegasus. So I'm going to go ahead and play a land and pass the turn. And I think next turn I'm going to probably want to play... What does he have here? Okay. He's got a flying 4/3. Okay, this is interesting. So it looks like he's playing a combination of tokens and artifact with blue. Really interesting. So he's got a 4/3 flyer, so that's a little bit unfortunate. It's going to be a blocker for us. At the beginning of your upkeep, return an artifact control to its owner's hand. Okay. Well, what we can do is we can set up for this. So what we can do is we're not going to attack right now. And, ooh, unless we can kill that. I think we might be able to kill that. So this is what I'm going to do, okay? I'm going to go into combat. And we're going to attack. And I'm going to wait for him to block. It probably will block. And then, before the damage goes through, we're going to play this. And that's going to pump our guy and get rid of his 4/3. So not only is that killing him and getting rid of a blocker, but it's also going to prevent him from playing off of his artifact theme there. So that's going to slow him down quite a bit, hopefully. And it also clears his board so that we can continue to attack with our tokens, which is really good. Alright, let's see what we get here. So we get another plains, which is pretty good. And again, unfortunately I can't play it. I'm not sure what's going on here. There we go. That was very awkward. So our options here are to play the Paragon and do 4 damage. Or we can play Squadron Hawks. And I think that what I want to do is just start getting more damage through, especially since he's at 12 health. So we're going to play the Paragon. And he does not have a counterspell up with 4 cards in hand, so that's great news. And then we're just going to attack 4/4. So at this point, if he's got any more cards that are like the Raise the Alarm where he gets to put 2 1/1 tokens into play, he can go ahead and do that because our guys are now pumped up. And I think the following turn we'll actually be able to be pretty close to winning. In fact, I think we will be able to win because we're going to be able to do... Okay, maybe not. So he's got a blocker. He's got a 1/3 blocker. As long as we keep pushing here though, I think we'll have a pretty good chance of winning. I think we're going to play the Paragon on the next turn. Ooh, very good. So I think we'll play the Paragon once again. What the heck is going on here? Wow, this is really interesting. We're actually not able to play cards. There we go. Okay, the game is getting buggy or something. So, at this point, we're able to attack. And I think what I'm going to do is... I don't think I need to... Wow, the game is completely frozen now. There we go. Okay, so let's go into combat. I don't think I need to give anything vigilance because this has defender, so he's not going to be able to attack us back anyway. And then we're just going to swing. Just 9 damage, which is lethal, so he's going to have to block one of them. And because that's a 1/3 and this is a 3/3... they're just going to bounce off of each other. This would have died, but because it has a clause here that says prevent all combat damage, so he doesn't actually take any combat damage from our Paragon, which is unfortunate. And he's at 2 health, so at this point he's either got a board wipe, or he's just going to leave. So I'm hoping he kind of has a board wipe for his sake, but if not, we're probably just going to win the game. So I don't have as many tokens here as I would like to have, but as you can see, it does get quite aggressive when you can have a few tokens on the field and then just pump them up. So it's a really good strategy. It works very well in many different formats in Magic, including Commander, Standard, and Modern. I'm not sure if Legacy has any good token decks, but nevertheless. So he's been replaced by AI. It basically concedes, and at this point it doesn't really matter what we do. We're just going to go ahead and swing in for the win. He's going to block with 1, and it's not enough, and we win the game. Alright guys, that is going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything that you'd like to share with us, just make sure to leave those comments in the comments section below. There's going to be some more videos coming up, so definitely stay tuned for that. We're going to be taking a look at blue, black, red, and green, as well as some basic deck building principles, and maybe some live videos. So let me know what you'd like to see. I'm very open-minded about this, and I do hope that the video does help you to sort of make up your own ideas about the kind of deck and the kind of cards that you'd like to play. So with that being said, again guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Take it easy. Ciao.